My dear friends, we've gathered together once again. Now settle into your favorite chair and get comfortable, because today I have something special to share with you all. As I prepared this content, I kept thinking about valued viewers like you. Your likes and comments inspired me to give it my very best. I know time is precious. That's why I want to make these minutes truly worthwhile for you. If today's video brings even a small smile to your face or brightens your day just a little, that would make me so happy. Now join me on this journey. But remember, your support is what keeps this channel going. Your likes, comments, and especially your subscriptions give me the strength to continue. Shall we begin? I'm certain this special content I've prepared for you today will bring some wonderful surprises. It was supposed to be a peaceful Tuesday. The kind of Tuesday where British clouds hang low like regret, and the air smells faintly of wet umbrellas and passive aggression. Sir Michael Caine, legend, thespian, national treasure, and a man who can narrate a funeral and still make it sound majestic, was en route to Buckingham Palace. He wasn't on royal duty. He wasn't filming Batman. No, he was there for something far more serious. A documentary. Title: The Royal Silence. Why Guards Don't Blink. Narrated, obviously, by himself. He wore a navy blue trench coat, a tailored scarf with faint Union Jack stitched into it, and shoes so polished they reflected passing pigeons. He clutched a thermos of lukewarm Earl Grey and walked with that unmistakable gait that screamed, "I've seen more Shakespeare than you've seen your own mother." As he reached the palace gates, a film crew scuttled behind him, whispering, adjusting mics, fumbling with cables. A small crowd of curious tourists had gathered. Some recognized him and gasped. One guy from Iowa whispered, "Dude, it's Alfred." Michael took a deep breath and began narrating into the camera, his voice a smooth mix of honey, gravel, and righteous British disappointment. The guards at Buckingham Palace are trained to resist distraction, emotion, and even weather. But what they cannot prepare for is fate. And fate, as it happened, was airborne dairy. From the left, almost comically slow, a pink blur soared through the air. An unassuming woman, a tourist mom juggling a screaming toddler, a London map, a Pret bag, and her own existential crisis, had accidentally flung her cup of strawberry yogurt while spinning around to chase a rogue pigeon that had stolen her baby's rice cake. The yogurt flew with elegance, grace, purpose. Time slowed. Michael turned his head, mid-monologue. One must wonder if these guards, splorch, direct hit, right in the face, right in the face. Silence. Then laughter. Tourists gasped. A toddler pointed. One American said, "Yo, is this like a Banksy thing?" Michael stood completely still. The pink yogurt oozed down his nose, clinging to his brow like a fruit-based war wound. Bits of strawberry dotted his cheek like tragic freckles. No one moved. Except one royal guard, whose upper lip twitched ever so slightly. Michael blinked slowly, removed his glasses, cleaned them with aristocratic precision, then said, "I haven't taken a shot like that since the '68 Critics' Circle Awards." He looked to the heavens. Why, Lord? Why dairy? Still dripping yogurt, Michael marched toward the guard line. Tourists parted like the Red Sea. He approached the center guard, emotionless, unmoved, unwavering. "You there. Yes, you. Did you flinch?" No response. Michael narrowed his eyes. "I see. So, you choose silence. A noble path." He turned to the crowd, raised his yogurt-covered hand, and dramatically declared, "Let it be known, on this day, Britain's greatest actor was assaulted by fruit." Cue camera flash. Cue tourist mom screaming, "I'm so sorry, I swear I was trying to feed my child." Michael nodded solemnly, still milking the moment. "Madam, you have not ruined my day. You have enhanced it. This is content." Just then, his producer ran up, face pale. "Sir Michael, please, we have press watching." Michael cut him off. "Silence. Derek. Let history unfold." He pulled a silver spoon from his coat pocket. Because of course he carries one. scooped yogurt from his own face, tasted it, paused. Acceptable texture. Fruit content 7/10. But the surprise? Ah, that's a solid 12. At this point, a small child in the crowd yelled, "Are you gonna fight the guard?" Michael's eyes twinkled. "No, my dear. We are going to settle this the old-fashioned way." He turned back to the guard, adjusted his scarf, and pulled a small Tupperware container from his bag. Inside, a perfectly sculpted bowl of Greek yogurt. With honey. Gasps. Michael held it like a sacred relic. "Let us see who can resist this temptation." He slowly peeled off the lid, letting the scent of fermented culture waft toward the guards. The center one's nostrils flared. "Ah," Michael said. "So you do breathe." Then, without warning, Michael dipped his spoon and launched a dollop at the leftmost guard's chest. Plop. No reaction. Another spoonful. This time at the tall bearskin hat. Splap. Still nothing. Michael turned to the crowd. "It appears they are dairy-proof." Suddenly, the center guard took one step forward. The crowd gasped. Michael froze. The guard reached into his coat, pulled out a go-gurt. "You dare bring Greek into this court of strawberry?" The guard's voice was like thunder filtered through a posh megaphone. Michael chuckled. "So you do speak. Excellent." He took a fencing stance, with the spoon. "Defend your dairy." It was on. The battle that followed would be known as the Yogurt Skirmish of Buckingham. Michael Caine, armed with a spoon, an apron that said, "Acting is my cardio," and a selection of premium yogurts, faced off against 3 stoic, strawberry-wielding soldiers. Tourists screamed. Phones recorded. One TikTok influencer fainted from overexcitement. The leftmost guard pulled out a mini fondue set. The rightmost one dual-wielded Yakult bottles like throwing stars. Michael dodged, weaved, spooned back with precision honed through years of cinema training. He narrated every move in real time. Ah yes, the classic dairy parry. One spoonful caught a guard in the lapel. The crowd cheered. The Queen's corgis, sensing chaos, barked from the balconies. Finally, the last move. Michael leaped, gracefully, for an 89-year-old, spinning in the air with a heroic H.A. He flung a final scoop of blueberry yogurt directly into the center guard's face. Splat. Time stopped. The guard wiped it slowly, then smiled. "You've earned your trifle, Sir Caine." Michael bowed. Tourists erupted. Someone threw flowers. And the Queen? She opened a window, slow-clapped, and raised her own yogurt. The palace courtyard was chaos wrapped in etiquette. A yogurt-splattered Sir Michael Caine stood, spoon raised like a warrior bard, while the central royal guard, his face now dappled in blueberry, offered a slow, approving nod. The two combatants locked eyes, not as enemies, but as dairy-bound gladiators who had tasted the same fermented fate. Around them, tourists screamed. Some applauded. One American in a bucket hat loudly declared, "Yo, this is better than Hamilton." The guards did not retaliate. Not yet. Instead, the central figure, previously stoic, now strawberry-smeared, lifted his bearskin hat with majestic slowness, and revealed underneath it a bowl of trifle. The crowd gasped. Layers of custard, sponge, jelly, and cream shimmered in the British sunlight like a dessert Excalibur. Michael narrowed his eyes. "I see," he muttered. "You were holding back." The guard spoke again, his voice clipped and regal, like an Oxford-educated volcano. "You flung Greek. I respond with tradition." Then, with ceremonial precision, the guard dipped a silver spoon into the trifle and catapulted a dollop directly at Michael's chest. Splorp. It struck true. Right in the monogrammed scarf. Michael looked down. Then up. Then down again. That was Fortnum and Mason custard. "You a savage." From the shadows, his assistant Derek whispered, "Sir, we're running out of clean scarves." Michael raised a hand. "Silence. Derek. This is now personal." He reached into his trench coat and pulled out a small chilled thermos of tzatziki. The crowd cheered. The battle escalated. Cucumbery Greek sauce met layered British dessert in an unholy dairy duel. Plastic spoons flew like arrows. A stray glob hit a Canadian tourist selfie stick, sending it careening into a pigeon, which retaliated by dive-bombing a German influencer. Still, the Royal Guards remained weirdly coordinated. Silent, yes, but synchronized like yogurt-fueled Power Rangers. From beneath their tunics, they revealed miniature jars of jam, strawberry, marmalade, and what one tourist swore was gooseberry. A fresh volley of dollops launched in perfect arcs. Michael twirled like a cream-slicked matador. "You call this a custard crusade?" he bellowed mid-dodge. "I did theater in '68 without a mic." He rolled behind a palace column, took a moment to breathe, looked at Derek. "Fetch the dairy nuke." Derek's face went pale. "Sir, you don't mean—" "Yes. The creme brulee grenade." Back in the courtyard, the guards closed ranks. Their boots crunched over fallen scones and broken biscuit shards. Then, the crowd parted. Out rolled a cart. A golden dessert trolley, gleaming in the sun, guarded by 2 footmen with butter-churn tattoos. Upon it, the rumored relic of Britain's sugar-laced past. The king's cheesecake. It shimmered. It wobbled. It threatened national security. Michael stepped forward, arms outstretched. "I thought they destroyed that during the Glucose Treaty of '89. A deep voice echoed from within the crowd. "We never signed it." And out stepped the Queen's personal pastry chef, Baron Percival de Caramel. Wearing an apron embroidered with "Bake to the Future," he carried a tray like it was Excalibur's sibling. His eyes locked with Michael's. "You brought spoon. I brought flamethrower." He ignited a handheld torch and began crisping a creme brulee with militaristic efficiency. Michael turned to Derek. "This has escalated." Derek: "Sir, they've gone full patisserie tactical." Michael: "Then it's time for my final form." He removed his scarf, untied his coat, and underneath, a full-body apron that read, "Don't be jelly." The crowd lost it. At that moment, a double-decker bus skidded to a halt outside the gates. Its top level was filled with nuns. One yelled, "Is that Michael Caine covered in custard?" Another replied, "That man deserves a BAFTA for dairy resilience." Just then, a rogue scoop of rice pudding from the second-floor balcony splattered across a guard's cheek. He flinched. Michael's eyes widened. The crowd gasped. "You moved," he whispered. The guard wiped his face with a napkin made of Union Jack silk and declared, "I broke protocol for flavor." Suddenly, everything changed. The guards began speaking. The silence of centuries crumbled like an overbaked tart. "This post was never about duty," said the leftmost. "It was about dessert superiority," said the rightmost. Michael collapsed onto a folding chair brought out by a random French tourist. "I knew it. The monarchy was a patisserie this whole time." Sir Caine looked down at his cream-drenched self, then stood, proud. He raised a cup of warm custard to the guards. "Let it be known I, Sir Michael of Derry, fought the silent soldiers, and lived." The guards, in unison, saluted with spoons. From the balcony, the Queen raised a golden fork. "Let the pudding pact be sealed." Trumpets blared. The corgis barked. Someone handed Michael a biscuit. He took a bite, sighed. "Needs more jam." The crowd erupted in cheers. Cameras flashed. TikToks were born. A documentary was green-lit. And there, in the heart of British dignity, dairy reigned supreme. If history books had any guts, they'd replace every war chapter with this one. Because what unfolded next in the Buckingham courtyard was not just a culinary showdown. It was a revolution layered like tiramisu, built with spoonfuls of chaos and glazed in the kind of madness that makes Parliament look like a knitting club. Sir Michael Caine, by now coated in dairy so thoroughly that children mistook him for a human éclair, stood tall despite his custard-crusted eyebrows. He held the golden ladle like a knight brandishing his final sword. Derek, his loyal assistant, had fashioned a makeshift bandolier across his chest out of squeezable yogurt tubes. The man looked like a probiotic commando. The royal guards, however, were done pretending this was anything less than warfare. Their red coats now stained in everything from lemon curd to jam, their bearskin hats replaced by what looked suspiciously like inverted pudding bowls, for protection, naturally, and their silence? Broken. "You may have your Greek goo, old man," one guard said, hefting what could only be described as a tactical tart launcher. "But this is the Queen's court," said another, adjusting his monocle goggles. "And here, the meringue always rises." They pressed a button. From somewhere deep inside the palace, a rumbling, a tremor, and then, ratatouille. No, not the dish. A swarm of rats in tiny chef hats burst forth through a side gate, dragging behind them a cannon made of fondant and antique teacups. The cannon bore the name Victoria's Vengeance, in cursive icing. Michael gasped. "The secret weapon of Windsor. I thought it was a myth." A rat squeaked aggressively. Derek translated. "He says, surrender your spoons or prepare for moose-based obliteration." Michael didn't flinch. "Tell the rat, over my dairy body." The battle resumed. Marshmallow smoke bombs exploded in the air, coating everything in a soft pastel fog. Eton mess grenades rained down. Scones became projectiles. Someone weaponized a shepherd's pie. Through it all, tourists live-streamed with stunned awe. "This is better than Bridgerton," whispered one teen. "This is Bridgerton," her mother corrected, mistaking Michael for a time-traveling duke. Just then, a figure emerged from the palace steps. Queen Camilla, dressed in full combat baking gear, including a spatula staff and oven mitt epaulets. She raised a whisk high. Enough. Everything froze. The rats stopped mid-scurry. The guards halted their jelly barrage. Even Michael's flan grenade stopped in mid-air, held by the invisible hand of royal command. Camilla stepped down slowly, trailed by corgis in powdered wigs. Her voice carried the wrath of 10 soggy-bottomed bake-off contestants. "You shame the crown with this culinary carnage. You shame the tradition. You shame the cream." Michael fell to one knee. "Your Majesty, I never meant to start a dairy war. I only wanted to prove that lactose can bring us together." Camilla tilted her head. "Did you bring any lemon drizzle?" Michael reached into his pocket, produced a slice. She took it, nibbled. Time slowed. A single tear rolled down her cheek. "It's exquisite." The guards lowered their weapons. The rats tipped their hats. One corgi fainted. Camilla raised her hand. "From this day forward, let all disputes be settled not with spoons, but with servings. Not with clotted cream, but with kindness. And for God's sake, let no man weaponize jam ever again." The crowd erupted in applause. Michael stood, bowing low. Derek wept. "Sir, you ended the dairy rebellion." Michael looked out over the custard-drenched battlefield. "No, Derek. We all did." The sun emerged from behind the clouds, glinting off the gelatinous surfaces below. And somewhere, deep within the palace kitchen, Paul Hollywood nodded in ghostly approval. The palace lawn, once a pristine canvas of regal decorum, was now a Jackson Pollock fever dream of creme brulee shrapnel, broken tart crusts, and dollops of unidentified mousse. Sir Michael Caine, flan still dripping from one ear, stood triumphantly in the center of it all like a war-weary general who just emerged from the stickiest of civil wars. Around him, the royal guards laid down their weapons, piping bags, jelly trebuchets, and what suspiciously looked like a mortar launcher disguised as a teapot. "I never thought I'd see the day jam was outlawed in a military context," murmured Derek, wiping custard off his monocle, which he'd never worn before today but now seemed to be part of his personality. Michael turned to him. "Derek, my boy, peace was not baked in a day." Just then, a low horn blared across the courtyard. A military Rolls-Royce pulled up to the palace gate, chrome shining like the lid of a fresh tin of condensed milk. Out stepped none other than Prime Minister Nigel Butterworth IV, dressed in an apron that read, "Stiff upper whisk." "Good God, what happened here?" he barked. Michael didn't flinch. Democracy, with a dash of double cream. Butterworth surveyed the battlefield. You turned Buckingham into a Bakewell battleground. Camilla stepped beside him, licking a spoon with queenly elegance. Don't be dramatic, Nigel. It's only custard. But the rodents, the weaponized gatto. Oh, hush, she replied, patting his face. We've needed a shake-up since the last Jubilee. The Prime Minister blinked. This isn't a shake-up. It's a sugar-fueled coup. Just then, one of the royal guards, still dripping with blackberry reduction, sprinted toward them. Your Majesties, sirs, ladies, there's more. More what? Asked Michael, now cautiously holding a napkin like it was a white flag. The guard gasped. The French. They've arrived. Everyone turned to the gates. Sure enough, a battalion of impeccably dressed French pâtissiers marched in, led by Pierre Lamerde, France's most feared pastry general and self-declared Duke of Decadence. He wore a chocolate cravat and boots filled with ganache. Behind him, a cart carried a fully operational croquembouche cannon and what appeared to be a living baguette golem. La diplomatie est morte, Pierre declared, adjusting his eclair-shaped monocle. Let us see if ZE British palate can survive ZE apocalypse du dessert. Michael stepped forward. No more moose wars. No more flan grenades. This is a sacred lawn. Children play here. Sometimes corgis, too. Pierre raised a delicate brow. Then you surrender? Michael tightened his bathrobe belt. He'd long since abandoned any formal attire. No. We settle this the old way. Pierre sneered. Duels are illegal under the Treaty of Devonshire. Michael grinned. Not a duel. He snapped his fingers. A corgi rolled in a small cart from the palace kitchen. It held 2 towering trifles, British in origin, absurd in height, and trembling under the weight of decades of tradition. Trifle diplomacy, said Michael. You and me. 1 spoon. 1 bite. The most structurally sound wins. Gasps rang out. Even Pierre took a step back. You propose a spoon off? Camilla nodded. It's in the Magna Carta. Clause 74b. Nigel checked his phone. She's not wrong. Pierre took a deep breath, strode over, and selected his spoon, a sleek, ivory-handled number engraved with Vive la Gelatin. Michael, ever the gentleman, grabbed the communal serving spoon from his tea set. It had once belonged to Winston Churchill's dessert valet. The table was set. The world held its breath. Tourists climbed the gates. A BBC drone hovered overhead. 1 corgi barked the national anthem. Michael went first. He sliced his trifle with surgical precision, lifting a perfectly balanced spoonful that included sponge, jelly, custard, whipped cream, and a cherry on top. It did not wobble. It did not sag. Mary Berry would have wept. He placed it on a silver plate, stepped back. Pierre matched him. His spoon entered like a scalpel dipped in silken scorn. His trifle lifted with poise, a swirl of crème pâtissière, Genoise sponge, fruit layers so symmetrical they defied physics. It shimmered. They placed the 2 spoonfuls side by side. Silence. Then, a pigeon landed on the French spoon and pooped delicately onto it. The crowd erupted. Children screamed. A German tourist fainted. "Ze bias of nature," Pierre wailed. Michael smirked. Mother Nature picks her favorites. Pierre fell to his knees, sobbing into his beret. Michael extended a hand. "Come now. Let's not ruin dessert with bitterness." Pierre grasped it, tearful. "You are the stronger baker." "No," said Michael. "I'm just a man who knows the power of a good trifle and a well-timed pigeon." The courtyard exploded into applause. Camilla raised both arms. "As queen and former host of the Royal Bake-Off, I declare this war deliciously over." Fireworks shaped like eclairs launched into the sky. Custard rained gently on the crowd like a blessing from dairy gods. Derek popped champagne, made of buttermilk and British pride. As the sun dipped behind the towers of Buckingham, Michael stood beside Pierre, Camilla, and a small army of dessert-stained guards and rats. "Peace at last," he muttered. "Oui," replied Pierre, dabbing his eyes with a crepe. "And maybe a Netflix deal?" Michael smiled. "Only if Paul Hollywood plays the villain." And with that, they marched off into the setting sun, shoulder to shoulder, spoon to spoon, ready to build a sweeter, sillier future. The treaty room, usually reserved for high-level diplomatic affairs, or on Tuesdays, the Queen's needlepoint circle, was now temporarily converted into a dessert-stained negotiation chamber. Its oak-paneled walls still bore the scorched marshmallow scorch marks of the Great Meringue Misfire of 2006. A faint aroma of caramelized ambition hung in the air. Michael Caine, flanked by Camilla and a still-sniffling Pierre Lamerde, stood at the head of the confection-covered table. He had changed out of his custard-soaked bathrobe and into something even more British, a waistcoat patterned with tea bags and Queen Elizabeth commemorative spoons. At the opposite end of the room stood the international delegation. A Pierre, wrapped in a blanket that suspiciously resembled a crepe Suzette. At the Italian cannoli consortium, led by Don Gnocchi Cannelloni. A Swiss fondue ambassadors, bubbling with neutrality. At the Scandinavian cinnamon tribunal, stoic and slightly yeasty. And one confused representative from Turkey who kept trying to offer baklava to everyone, whispering, "Please, just taste this and forget your nationalities." Sir Derek, now wearing 2 monocles, for symmetry, whispered to Michael, "Are we really signing a treaty named after a layered dessert?" Michael nodded. Tiramisu means, "pick me up," in Italian. And frankly, we all need one. Nigel Butterworth entered, holding a clipboard made of hardened fudge. "I've drafted the clauses," he announced, eyes twitching from sugar overload. "They're mostly legally binding, but also, oddly, gluten-free." Camilla peered over. "You misspelled diplomat." Nigel scoffed. Autocorrect changed it to diplomat. Which, if I may say, sounds delicious. Michael cleared his throat. "Let's begin." He reached for the golden ladle, Buckingham's ceremonial talking spoon, and tapped the table 3 times. All fell silent. Even the fondue stopped bubbling. "Ladies, gentlemen, pastry persons of varying fillings," Michael began. "Today, we write history not with ink, but with whipped cream. Not with swords, but with spatulas." Pierre nodded solemnly. "And not with rage, but with raspberries." The Italian representative stood up, mustache trembling. "I propose Clause 1, that all dessert-based military projects be suspended indefinitely. No more tiramisu torpedoes. No more stealth cannoli." Derek chimed in. "Especially no more éclair mines. One exploded in my sock drawer last week." Clause 1 was unanimously passed. Clause 2 came from the Scandinavians, that a neutral International Dessert Oversight Board, DOB, be formed. Headquartered in Copenhagen. Staffed by grannies. Clause 3, suggested by the Turkish rep, still offering baklava, was that baklava be internationally recognized as a peace-offering dessert and served at all diplomatic standoffs. Clause 4, a joint Netflix series titled Layered Lies, Secrets of the Spoon, to fund rebuilding efforts and satiate the public's ravenous hunger for scandalous dessert drama. As the clauses stacked up, so did the treaties, layered, signed, sealed with edible wax, and gently dusted with icing sugar. But just as the final clause was to be signed, the doors burst open. In stumbled Gordon Ramsay, covered in soot, powdered sugar, and what might have been the remains of a lemon tart. He was out of breath. "They've gone rogue," he gasped. "Who?" asked Camilla. "The rogue bakers." Ramsay wheezed. "The Black Forest Front. They've split from the Swiss. They're headed for Windsor armed with Zahertorta sabers and Toblerone trench spikes." A gasp rippled through the room. Pierre stood, quivering. "Non. The rogue chocolatiers. They were expelled from the Swiss delegation years ago for excessive ganache aggression." Michael narrowed his eyes. "And now they return. For vengeance." Nigel dropped his clipboard, which shattered into a million brittle fudge bits. "We're not ready. The trifle truce hasn't even cooled yet." Ramsay, clutching the treaty, shouted, "They're calling it Operation Schwarzwalder." The room exploded into action. Camilla donned a helmet made of upside-down meringue. Derek pulled a map of Windsor from beneath the fruit bowl. Michael turned to the group. "We can't fight fire with fondant." Pierre, now rewrapped in his battle beret, whispered, "Then what?" Michael raised a finger. "We distract them with the one weapon they fear most." The room leaned in. "Savory," gasps. One diplomat choked on a marzipan button. "You mean?" Ramsay whispered. "Cheese." Michael nodded. "Brie. Stilton. Blue. Weapons of mass digestion." Camilla snapped her fingers. "To the cheese cellar." They moved quickly. Beneath the palace kitchen lay the royal dairy bunker, a cold, dimly lit cavern where rounds of cheddar slumbered like nuclear warheads. Only two people had the key, Camilla and Elton John. Luckily, Elton had left his copy inside a wheel of Wensleydale last Christmas. As the group entered, their breath turned misty. The cheeses were stacked in towering wheels, each labeled with cryptic code names: Camembert, Feta Fury, Mozzarella Jedden. Michael reached for the ancient wedge, Project Cheddar Storm.